The Weekend in Jacksonville is presented by Stonecore on Phillips Highway, your one-stop choice to beautify your home. With pavers, stonework, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces, pergolas, and more. Stonecore, we do outdoors better.
Crossover season is in full effect, and boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about on the Weekend in Jacks as we hurtle towards the Christmas holiday. Welcome into the Weekend in Jacks, your second favorite media mogul, Mia O'Brien here, sitting in for the favorite, of course, one Dan Hicken. Let's begin with your Jacksonville Jaguars, getting ready for their first Sunday night football game since 2008. Fun story from the Jaguars locker room yesterday. I had to inform Tyler Shatley, the longest tenured Jacksonville Jaguar, that he had never played in a Sunday night football game. He looked at me with two heads and was like, no, like I had two heads and was like, no, like we played the Seahawks in 2017 and that was a night game. And I said, no, brother, that actually started at, I think, 4 or 4:25. So technically, the Big Cats making their return to the NBC Sunday Night Football airwaves for the first time since I was in the early stages of high school. Plenty of you were in middle school, including Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Walker Little, and so many more. And so obviously, another milestone met. But are the Big Cats ready to seize the moment? The sentiment that I got from being in the locker room this week and speaking with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, there's no panic. Dewey Wingard actually told me that he hates people that panic. It's just a sense of urgency coming off of those two losses. The Big Cats officially 3.5-point dogs to the current number one seed in the AFC in the Baltimore Ravens. The Everbank Stadium will once again be doing the Light Up the Bank feature. So if you don't have that downloaded on your Jaguars app on your phone, make sure you download it so you can participate in that pregame festivity. The big storyline, of course, though, has been the wide receiver play. Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones combined for 9 catches on 27 targets against the Cleveland Browns. Now, certainly, in the case of Zay Jones, you could say that one play he was held. There was another one, questionable, no defensive pass interference call. But the Calvin Ridley question is one that we keep hurtling towards. And it's not a question of, is he running the right routes or not? Which, by the way, I did check with people in the building last night. He did run the wrong route on that second interception that Trevor Lawrence threw against the Cleveland Browns. The question that so many of us are now pondering here at the Superstation and beyond, is it worth it to sign him to a long-term extension and in turn also give up a second-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons as part of the conditions of that trade that Trent Baalke made over a year ago now? Part of how the Jaguars could get around it is if they refrain from signing Ridley or they do tag Ridley at the March League Years Open, and in turn that pick would convert to a third-round pick. But is that a third-round pick that, I don't know, maybe you want to use on a guard, a backup center to compete with Luke Fortner, maybe even a young wide receiver, especially in such a deep wide receiver class that you know that the Xavier Legettes and the Worthies out of Texas and so many more projected to be there in that second round that you potentially could steal, even if you are picking at 32. I think it's a question that Jaguar fans will be pondering whether this team makes the playoffs or wins the Super Bowl regardless. Let's move to the college front. A whole lot of movement as we barrel towards 1 week away, less than that actually, from early signing day across the nation. Let's begin with the district court ruling in West Virginia earlier this week as a Judge Bailey, shout out to Judge Bailey, he granted a temporary restraining order that allows for athletes who have transferred more than once to be immediately eligible if they transfer again for the next 14 days. This is a temporary restraining order, and so this could be overruled, and after December 27th, they say, no, not immediately eligible anymore. But this makes open season even more open for the next 2 weeks, especially on the all-important high school and college football recruiting front. Because, yes, early signing day, December 20th, that's next Wednesday. DJ Lagway, the prize recruit of the Florida Gators in their class of 2024, did tweet out a picture earlier this week of himself, Billy Napier, his family, that they're so excited to join the Gator family. And then on the flip side, you have 5-star defensive lineman L.J. McCray, who, of course, committed to the Florida Gators, but took visits to Auburn and Florida State last weekend. And so I think these two signing classes are far from determined as we now look at 4 or 5 days away from them putting pen to paper. If anything, I think you could see Florida State flip a few more guys. You could see Florida flip a few more guys. There's a certain wide receiver that's allegedly committed to Ohio State, but people believe, given that he's from the state of Florida, he still could go to one of the two in-state institutions. And so that's a situation to monitor. But as we talk about the high school recruiting front, What also is the biggest domino, in my opinion, that has to fall for so many other players to sign here, there, and everywhere, and how these rosters will look in 2024, is the transfer portal when it comes to quarterbacks. And it might even be a quarterback who's not even entering the transfer portal that has to be the first domino to fall, and he just so happens to hail from the River City and Carson Beck. From what we have been told, Carson Beck is going to make his decision in the next week if he will be returning to the University of Georgia or if he will be entering the NFL draft. From what we've been told, he does have a first-round grade. However, he didn't win a national title as the starting quarterback at the University of Georgia. He won 2 as a backup. He did not lead them to an SEC championship over Georgia a few weeks ago. Does he say, I'm going to roll the dice and come back for one more year and try to win it all with the Dogs 3 in 4 seasons? If Carson Beck opts to go to the NFL draft, that is where all heck breaks loose, because now all of a sudden Kirby Smart is having to look at the transfer portal. Does he try to bring, I don't know, Arch Manning perhaps to Athens? Or does he jump into the Cam Ward, DJ Uiagalelei sweepstakes? Because Florida State and Miami are the front runners, according to On3 Sports right now, for Ward Services, who has been the belle of the ball this transfer portal offseason, and Uiagalelei also expected to make an official visit to Florida State. If Carson Beck doesn't go back to Georgia, all bets are off the table. I'm sorry to the Miami fans who I know were so excited to see Cam Ward dining on high-end cuisine and seafood at a steak restaurant down in South Beach, and they're so excited they think they have this one in the bag. If Georgia gets back into the fray, good luck with that one. Although I do think Cam Ward, ultimately, it's Florida State, Miami. I think Ohio State also has an outside shot. But that Carson Beck domino will be the biggest one that needs to fall. On the high school front, congrats to our 3 state runner-ups. Unfortunately, no local state champions this year, but tremendous seasons by the Mandarin Mustangs, the St. Augustine Yellow Jackets, and the Bradford Tornadoes. All 3 of those programs, by the way, have a ton of juniors, and that includes the star quarterback for St. Augustine and Lachlan Hewlett, who I personally think, despite being a Wake Forest commit, he's going to get even more traction this offseason. And then you have Tramel Jones, the Florida State commit, under center at Mandarin, coupled with Jamie French, the 5-star wide receiver. The Mustangs are going to make some noise again next season. And so while it's a disappointing result out of Tallahassee last week, I do think that those 3 schools have a good shot to make it all the way back next year. Shout out to you for joining us for the Weekend in Jax. Sit back, relax, and get ready for a wild week before we head into the Christmas holiday.